aggression. This is more or less a nation-to-nation war fight. It is not an intra situation where we have been used to.
Especially
this is
in Africa.
One country attacking another country. So this is a full-scale or a full-blown war. And for me, I think it's quite unfortunate, more especially as we have the United Nations as a body that was established post the Second World War to ensure that such things never happened. But as it is, we have found ourselves in a situation where, if not carefully managed, could blown into what some have described as the Third World War. And if that should happen, there are those who believe that is going to be quite apocalyptic if that happened, because you are looking at science and technology and the development that has taken place in the area of armament, where people have built arsenals that have the capacity with one strike to wipe
exactly
a whole community of the surface of the earth. So if you ask me for my initial comment, I would say it's quite unfortunate, and probably the UN may have to go back, revise its notes, restructure, and then situate issues within the context of the 21st century. Because since the outbreak of the war, people have gone into history to give us a justification for what has happened. Some have also written, giving a reason why there is no justification for what has happened. And what I ask is, within this context, is the UN a toothless bulldog? Is the UN relevant today as it was when it came into being after the Second World War? Because like the League of Nations collapsed just after the Second World War came in, because the League of Nations was instituted to forestall any war the magnitude of what we saw in 1917. And then by 1939, another situation had come in, dissolving the League of Nations. And I think lessons from the Second World War ensure that the UN was restructured for us to have a solid organization that could put control on such situations. But as it is now, I'm asking, and it is not just this particular incident, over the past 3 decades, every Ghanaian would realize one nation attacking the other because of a certain power. And all the UN has done was to go in to persuade, what we call moral persuasion, to convince people to put down their arms. And so if the UN is just an entity that draws on the moral conscience of societies, then I ask myself, is the UN really necessary as a body?
That actually brings to mind just a little diversion. That brings to mind the crisis in Rwanda, the genocide in Rwanda way back 1994,
yeah.
and what the role the UN actually played or did not play I mean, they shut their doors, and Rwanda suffered a lot. Paul Kagame became very angry with all of that. So, well, let's come back to nations. Another discussion for another time. But let's look at, tie your initial comments into the fact that Russia, we're talking about Russia, one of the most powerful countries in the world. You talked about technology. Talk about a nation that has their arsenals, that have nuclear weapons. We're talking about a nation that is providing gas to several European countries right there. And this is a stubborn, minute man who is standing firm against Russia. Do you think he has a chance?
Chances, no. Though there's a popular saying by one Hoover that when two people are engaged in a war, at the end of the day, you don't ask who is right. What you ask is who is left. It means that definitely one will die. The other might survive.
Interesting.
So for now, it is too early to call. And for me, I think that that particular area of the world has been simmering for years now. Since, I mean, even before the what do you call it? Before the Cold War and after the Cold War. You remember in 2004 what they called the Orange Orange Revolution. And that actually was against the annexation of the Crimea. No, not the Crimea, sorry. That Orange Revolution was solved at a point. Then we also got to where we call the 2014 war between them, where Russia was fighting to annex Crimea. The current one, if you listen to Russia, what they are saying is Ukraine is overstretching its tentacles to annex and trying to disturb the peace of two independent and sovereign territories. That is Luhansk and Donetsk, which they think was going beyond the accepted levels in the pact that they signed some years back. But the question I would like to ask is, would two wrongs ever make a right? Because if you are saying that you are trying to go to war with Ukraine because they are attacking others, and they don't have the right to attack those territories that are independent, you believe are independent, what tax do you also have to attack another nation? And that is why we'll go back to the UN. Because UN is an organization that is supposed to oversee some of these international troubles in the world. So for a country like Russia, powerful as it is, to say they are intervening on behalf of Donetsk and Luhansk, I just don't get it. You signed a pact some years back, and if you think they are not going according to what they signed for, there are other ways of there should be other places where you can take the UN, for example, appeal to them. And if you take the laws into your hands and start killing them, are you doing justice? So at the end of the day, whether they win or don't, I'm trying to look at the merits and demerits of it all. Is it justified for somebody who is saying that somebody is doing the wrong thing, so I'm going to correct the wrong? Then you also do the similar thing by also attacking another person.
Don't you
so
think
for
that,
me,
don't you think that maybe they were provoked by what U.S. did?
If you look at the two...
there was some dialogue.
Yes. If you look at the two reasons that they are giving for now, I think that they are just immediate factors. They are saying the reason they are going to Ukraine is to demilitarize Ukraine against those two states and to also Nazify, denazify, because they believe it's a Nazis area. So they want to take them out of the Nazis ideologies. So for me, I think it's an intervention that deserves an international intervention as well. Because for me, if the two of us here, we are trying to fight over, you are attacking me and claim things that is not justified to attack me, and he also attacks you, then I think it's not the best. Russia, for me, should have played an intermediary role to intercede between, to be in between Ukraine and those two territories. In which case, I would have been thinking that maybe they are just thinking of peace. As it stands now, there are other underlying factors. You talked of U.S. That is one of the remote factors. They think that U.S. has given a lot of support to Ukraine over the years, and they think that allowing Ukraine to grow, to annex those territories, it will be to the advantage of U.S. and the West. And already Russia has a lot of issues against the West, but for its wealth in natural gas and crude oil, I'm sure by now a lot of sanctions would have gone against them. But you see, the European countries have been very careful because they know what they are getting from Russia. And they are not rushing to impose any sanctions. And some time ago, when the U.S., during Reagan's time, they tried to impose some sanctions that other countries should not buy oil from Russia. What happened? It didn't keep long. After some time, they had to go back.
Those
yes, because it was difficult. Russia has one of the cheapest and readily available natural gas and crude oil. Comparatively, if you have to go to other countries to go and get it at very high cost. Right now that the crisis are there, you see how the oil prices have gone high. They are the third world producer of crude oil in the world. And natural gas, they feed up to 80% of Europe in terms of natural gas, which is used for electrification, for heating and other things that we all benefit from. As we sit here, we all benefit from all those. And so for me, at the end of the day, it's not about who is going to win the war and who is going to be left. Because as it is always said, if two elephants fight, it is the grass that will suffer. And the grass that is going to suffer will include me and you. As we sit here, if oil prices are going higher than we expect, at the end of the day, we'll buy fuel. Just last week or last 2 weeks, prices have gone high on 2 or 3 occasions. And as we sit now, if the situation continues like that in Russia and Ukraine, I wouldn't be surprised if by next 2 months, we'll start buying 1 liter per 10 cedis. 10 cedis per liter.
Okay. So
and to conclude,
yeah.
I think that we have to go back to a popular saying. I have said it here before. I think that Martin Luther King once said, and I quote him, that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And whatever injustice is happening in Ukraine and Russia, we shouldn't sit here and say that, oh, they are fighting over there, we are not part of it.
That's right.
Economically, politically, it's going to affect us as we sit in Ghana here. So we should all be praying for ceasefire in that region.
It's something we need to be praying about seriously, or something we need to actually ask for God's intervention, because if this thing fully blows out, it's going to have drastic effects on all of us. Before we go on, let me take your views and your opinions as well as viewers out there. So you can send us your opinions on the WhatsApp number 055 744 6429. 055 744 6429. Send us your WhatsApp messages and we shall read them right here. The number again is 055 744 6429. Cliff, George was raising a very interesting point there, and I'd like to tie it into this one, talking about how powerful Russia is in terms of its resources and all of that. The world is benefiting from it. But then there have been sanctions against Russia right now. Today, the European Union was actually saying that they are banning any kind of supplies from, any kind of supply of gas from Russia. So what they're going to do right now is consolidate their efforts among themselves so that they will depend on themselves without Russia. George, you think that will not work, eh? All these sanctions they are putting in place, there are other countries that are also putting certain sanctions against Russian organizations in their country and Russian individuals who are working there. According to George, it's not going to work.
Well, whether it's going to work or not, the indicators are very clear. Just when Russia was kicked off the SWIFT, which was the platform for all international transactions, most international transactions, already we are beginning to see how the ruble, which is the Russian currency, is beginning to lose its weight.
Fell already by
30%. And just that was just a day. So, well, in the coming days, we will see whether it will work or not. But if that is anything to go by, the indication clearly shows that the sanctions are really biting. And don't forget, yesterday, in Putin's address, he did indicate that one of the reasons for which he felt his nuclear standby force should be put on battle ready was the fact that the West were not just intervening, but they were over there imposing sanctions. And indeed, those calling for sanctions might have studied and known that, yes, indeed, sanctions at a certain level or at a certain threshold was going to bite on not just the government, but then the people of Russia as well. And already people are queuing in to withdraw
their money.
You understand? To the extent that the central bank had to give the threshold that people could change their rubles into the dollar.
But before you go on, it's quite interesting that the people of Russia, I mean, the people of Russia seem to be indifferent about what is going on. Yes, they are complaining about the economic impact it is having on them. But it's like, what can you say? What's going on? What can you say?
No, the people are not being indifferent. As we speak now, it is reported that about 6,000 people have been incarcerated for openly protesting against the act by its government.
By fear, some of them are just...
So even with that, with the intimidatory tactics against Russians, there are people who are still defying all those things and pouring onto the streets, asking their government to stop what it is doing. So it is wrong for you to say that people are indifferent about it. People have concerns about it. And if you watch the demonstration all over the world, you realize that there are people who are Russians who join these demonstrations to tell you that, yes, in as much as we are Russians, we don't think the approach to resolving that issue is the invasion as we have seen it. So people are not indifferent. People are very, very much concerned about what is going on
from
there.
where I sit and from reports I've had.
If you could have somebody like Abramovich telling you he's moving in to see how negotiation can be used in resolving the issue, then you should know that the target at the Russian oligarch is definitely going to have an impact, and already it is having an impact, because the oligarchs are also what we call here the rich tycoons that back are in very good relationship with President Putin. So, yes, as the days unfold, we will see the extent to which the sanctions are biting or not. But interestingly, if you listen to people who deal with international relations, those arguing and justifying why Russia has been doing what it's doing, there is this argument that certain agreements were signed detailing what can be done by NATO and its allies and what cannot be done. But then I asked the question, were those arrangements between NATO and Russia or NATO and the USSR? Because Russia as it is today is not the USSR. You understand? Russia as it is now is not the USSR. And the USSR as it was then was not Russia. And so people cite those arrangements for which they believe NATO has moved or breached those agreements. But I asked myself, when those agreements were signed, Ukraine, as it is today, was part of the USSR.
Sure. Key member.
A key member of the USSR. Moscow was, or Russia was, a member of the USSR. So the Georgians, the Latvias, all those countries, as we know them now, before 1991, were part of the USSR. And USSR dealt with other nations as a unified bloc, one country. And so the arrangement that NATO had with USSR, the question I ask is, would that arrangement or that agreement still be binding, looking at how the USSR has been fragmented, such that members who hitherto were under the command and control of the USSR today have built their own command and control and have asserted themselves, indicated that they have a right to self-determination. So they go to elections to elect their presidents. They have their own parliament. They have their own standing armies and all those things. Would Russia be right to assert rights granted it under the USSR? Or not? So probably maybe as we go on, we may have to get an international relation expert or a lawyer to help us. As we speak now, Ghana, we are an amalgamation of different four: the Gold Coast Colony, the trustee, the protectorate. put together to form Ghana. Touch wood. Assuming tomorrow something happens and people decide that, okay, we want to go our separate ways. Will agreements signed on to by the country called Ghana be binding on those separatists if it so happens?
Yeah, well, there's one school of thought that believes that Russia is trying to bring back that kind of feeling of the Soviet Union, and trying to pull Ukraine under its. Putin has denied this, but then at the end of the day, is it what it is?
But if you are denying that, then the question is, what would be the basis for you to say you want a sovereign state to be demilitarized? Because per that particular denier, then you admit that after the disintegration of the USSR, Ukraine becomes a sovereign state, indeed.
Of course. Yeah.
And as a sovereign state, it has a right to self-determination. And that is why I'm not surprised.
It has to do with the Donetsk and
that is why I am not,
that's his main reason.
Yes.
that is why I am not surprised at the citizens of Ukraine. If you watch their posture and the readiness to die for the country called Ukraine, clearly it tells you that these are people who believe their association with the USSR, of which Russia was part, is severed, and they are not ready to come back to form that particular union anymore. And I think the UN must be up and doing for me.
The UN must be up and doing. Yeah. Some of the European Union, I think they are taking it in phases. Well, maybe they're waiting for the European Union's actions. Right now, this accusation of the Ukrainian president against Russia that they're committing crime against humanity.
That's it. Yeah.
They're committing war crimes.
Yeah.
Right now, the European Union is taking it on personally.
Sure.
And all of that. But let's jump straight into our area, our jurisdiction. Let's talk about media coverage of this whole. Do you think the media has been fair in its coverage of this whole brouhaha going on?
It all depends on where a story is coming from. If a story is coming from the West, you know what they are going to write about. There are some media houses in the West that are saying that the main objective of Russia is not, their target is not about just going to demilitarize Ukraine, but their target is to consolidate the gains that they are making with Germany. Hitherto, there were no because of these trade sanctions that they always receive. For if you know, for some time now, they call it what? Nord Stream. This Nord Stream 1 and 2.
And then,
They have now put up a pipeline they call Nord Stream. That is moving from Russia directly to Germany. And they now pipe it directly. And from there, it will feed a lot of European countries. This is because they had a target, and the target is to move out of Ukraine, because most of their pipelines that take to Poland and other countries, Turkey and other, they pass through Ukraine.
Are you tying this into the media?
Yes.
How the media is looking at it?
Yes, yes. So I'm just talking of how some of the West media from the West are capturing it. They are thinking that it's because of this pipeline that is coming to Germany, and from Germany it is going to feed other countries closer to Germany. Because of that, some think others are influencing Ukraine to annex more people, because it will come to a time that they will no longer have support within. And that is why they think that Ukraine is moving on to get the support of these Luhansk and Donetsk, so that in a situation that Russia withdraws its trade links from there, they will still have that kind of symbiotic relations with these two. But that is their view. On the other side, people are also thinking that Ukraine is having this kind of resistance because they think they have the support of NATO and the US. That is also their view. But for me, if you look at the way things are going, we are not, we don't have we are not on the war front there. And we don't have direct correspondence in Ghana. But if you look at the way the stories are skewed all over, if you read some of the stories, you realize that, especially if you read from CNN and listen to CNN, and you watch CNN, some of the stories that are coming, it is as if Russia has not even got their own laws, or Ukraine have also not got the laws of the sovereign. As a sovereign state, they don't even have. So, for me, if you have to listen to some of those international news outlets, we might be misleading ourselves. If we come to Africa, we are not so much involved in those kinds. We are getting, should I say, second-hand information from other media outlets. So this is where we need to be very careful to find out what the underlying factors are. The remote factors are very necessary. After the immediate factors, for me, I really cannot fathom why those factors should be used as a pretext against another sovereign state to demilitarize them. You say that they are trying to subdue other territories, and so you are also, as I said earlier on, two mistakes will never make him right. So I think that media, we have a responsibility to let the people out there understand what is really going there. Maybe GTV will have to send you to feed us with good information from...
That will happen.
So that we'll get first-hand information. Rather than be dependent on skewed information outside there.
I've already packed my bags and ready to go. Anytime I'm sent there. But so, look, okay.
So going back to the issue, you were asking me if I'm tying, you're fine. I think that what is actually going out in Ukraine there needs some international intervention. He mentioned UN. So in a situation that UN doesn't come in, what next should we do? They also have some blocks, regional blocks that take care of themselves over there. Like we have ECOWAS, and what are they also doing? Is it not the case that people are just sitting aloof and trying to see what will happen at the end of the day? But should we wait? Should we wait until they finish crashing Ukraine before we intervene? These are the issues. But let us not even go there. Ukraine 3 days ago also said they had killed 5,000 soldiers of Russia. As to whether that is true or not, because for all we are hearing from the media outlets, they are rather crashing Ukraine. And for Ukraine to say that they have already killed 5,000 military men from Russia, that is where I get confused.
Well,
I get the whole thing skewed a bit, because it seems we're not getting...
But in terms of media reportage,
yes.
First and foremost, we must understand that each media organization has its own ideological underpinnings. They are set up for a particular purpose. Interestingly, over here in Ghana, most of the information we are getting are mainly from the pro-West media.
As well, we are second-hand information.
Outlets. But is it not instructive to even find out that Russia itself, which is a major player in what is happening, has tried as hard as possible to even control the information flow in its own country, where the Ministry of Information 3 days ago was talking about even the choice of words to be used by media houses. At least for over the weekend, I managed, or I tried very hard to be by the television, and I can say I scanned through a number of stations, because whilst I listen to or I watch the CNN and the BBC, my inclination was that these were pro-West media houses, and the kind of information may be skewed to favor
from
the Western
exactly
agenda.
From my observation, it seems like they are covering more of the interventions of the EU and other nations.
Yes,
They're
that
giving
one
more
is also there.
coverage to that.
So I use Al Jazeera as a buffer, because if you know the Al Jazeera, then you, of course, it is more of an intermediate because of where they are coming from. But interestingly, you seem to have the same message run across almost all the media networks, whether pro-West or not. Special operation. The anticipation was that we move in within 3-4 days, the operation is done, we move out. Today, as we speak, we've gone past day 3 of the special operation. We are in day 6. And so then the reportage that probably things are not going as planned, true, becomes an accurate reporting of what is happening. So, yes, the media, as you asked the question, has reported what is happening, and we are watching what is happening. As to whether they are being fair or not will have to depend on you, the individual, to understand that, yes, the media will send their lenses, their microphones there, but then every information will be decoded based on their own ideological underpinnings.
That's quite interesting. That's quite interesting. So I should get it that you're saying that depending on where that media house is coming from, that's how they look at the issue. Well, of course, should we say that is balanced?
Should we take that?
Should we say that is balanced then?
Well, from where I sit,
you say they are being balanced.
Balanced. Well, from where I sit here,
you think so?
Yeah.
Because we are not hearing much from Russia. We're hearing much from other countries and what's.
Well, of course, probably because Russia itself needs a state-controlled media, and so to go through it has not got the leverage as the others do. How many Russian media outlets do you have in Ghana? You understand? Unlike a situation where even today in China has a lot of media outlets in Ghana. If you are not watching the CCTV, you have the Xinhua and others operating as active media.
But if I want any information from Russia, I will turn to the BBC.
You have to turn to the BBC,
which is normally skewed, depending on the level.
And so, for as long as those are the only outlets on which we would depend in getting our information, then we are, like I said, even the CCTV. That's why I said, you watch all the networks, and there seems to be one message running across. Exactly. At least, if I can't trust the BBC and the CNN, the CCTV should be able to give me. And having watched, I get same message running across. So I assume that probably that is
I
what
would
is
have asked a question, but I will ask it during our final bit. I think we don't have much time.
Yeah, before you
like
ask that question, can I just tie in something?
1 minute, please.
Yeah,
1
sure.
minute.
Sure. You were asking whether the sanctions, I wanted to comment on it, but he was talking about it. Sanctions will work or not. And I was trying to say that, look, apart from Europe, the West, Russia has friends outside the West. And China is one of the best friends of Russia. They deal with them in so many things. Apart from China, they also have North Korea as one of their best friends. All those people are just sitting there waiting. They are hungry and thirsty for war too. And I think that if sanctions from the West are becoming too much in terms of their trade and economic activities, they will tend to China, but they still have alternatives for survival. And I think they can find that.
Yeah. For now,
Yes, sure.
let's come back home. Let's come back home. Ministry of Foreign Affairs actually moving in getting the parents and relatives who are stranded in Ukraine right now.
Yeah.
Let's comment on that. Let's comment on that.
Very well.
The students over there. Do you think the government's response towards the students' plight?
For me, I think it was very sweet.
Okay, I learned the first batch of students have a right. We're doing well.
Yeah, sure. It was a sweet move from government. The beginning, when people started calling for evacuation of students from Ukraine, played the tactics of the corona, pick up that responsibility of evacuating students from China. And later on, they realized that all those that were evacuated to other countries were suffering and dying from the virus. So at a point, I was like, is it too bad that we cannot even find places for our students till the end of the war? But at the end of the day, when I heard that other countries were evacuating, and I said, wow, if other countries are doing so, then why not Ghana? I was so much delighted when I heard that they started moving them through to neighboring countries for safety. And I was so happy. And as we speak now, I think that is one of the best steps government has taken. And so far, we have not heard that any Ghanaian has been hurt or disturbed anywhere in any of the countries. And I think that is a good step we have taken to get our people safely back in Ghana. After the whole war, after the end of the whole war, they still can go back and study.
Right. So we're yet to hear information about the casualties in Ukraine.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying that Africans, so far I've not heard of.
Unfortunately. What is your comment on the effort in bringing our students?
You know, a week or so before the actual onslaught, it kept giving giving briefing, their intel. And you remember those information, they made a request of their citizens to leave was going to invade. And so they asked them to quickly move out of Ukraine, and even went ahead to indicate that whoever refuses to move out of Ukraine, the American government was not going to risk its military by sending personnel in the war zone to evacuate. That was a week or two before the actual onslaught. Yesterday, the U.S. U.S. citizens to depart by private consider route and risk. Many land border crossing and main crossing have long waits. Recommend Hungary, Romania, and Slovakia border crossings. Hours.
Okay, give us 2 minutes so that.
So this is the U.S. that was providing the whole world with accurate information. And yet, as of yesterday, it was still talking about its citizens in the Ukraine. And so, for us, so far, officially, government indicates that there are about 1,000 Ghanaian students. Out of the 1,000 Ghanaian students, those who are officially government-sponsored, about 27. The remaining are those who have gone there to study on their own. And yet, government had put in the mechanism to ensure that those who want to move out of the war zone will move out. As of Sunday, this morning, the first 17 arrived safely in Ghana. But don't forget, you must make yourself available for you to be evacuated. The decision to be evacuated or not is a choice.
That's right.
And so there are some who may decide that we won't be in there. And like as I said, this on the lighter side.
Who would like to be in the war zone? Who would like to be in the war zone?
If you were there enjoying the goodies,
okay,
and probably in times of difficulty, you must help in dealing with the difficulty. That would make you a very good ally. So I have heard people saying they would prefer to even die than to come back to Ghana. And I say, well,
they will gain medals.
They are only being good neighbors because they were there enjoying the goodies in there, and the bad times have come. So if they want to share in the bad times with them, that is only
George. Sure. I would like to end on the note of Herodotus, the man who is considered as the father of history in the world, and he once said that sons bury their fathers when fathers wage war.
Okay.
And fathers bury their sons when the sons wage the war. Okay. What that means is that when the young ones are involved in some of these activities, like where there's war or they are in a war zone, definitely a lot of them will die. And their fathers will have to pick them up and bury. But if it is the aged that go to the war front, definitely some of them will also die, and sons will have to. But in this case, I am praying that both sons and fathers should live to bury each other at the right time. So
we're looking at the situation that, of course, we're praying will not escalate into something big. We don't need a third world war in this jurisdiction. Not at this time. Not after COVID has already dealt with us badly. I think we all need to rally behind the call for peace, and of course for this to end, because it's not really going to end well for us if it should continue. I should say thanks to my panelists for this discussion. I think we did do justice to the topic, and I wish we wouldn't discuss it next week, because next week maybe it will be over.
Yeah, it's our prayer.
Cliff Ekufo is a journalist with the New Times Corporation, and George Ramsey Benamba is a chief editor with the Ghana News Agency. My name is Jonathan Thompson. We'd like to thank all the viewers out there for watching, and keep praying for the world, especially what is going on between Russia and Ukraine. We don't need that. We don't need that. Bye.